Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Vlad Mabus, and today we're going to be breaking down the biggest political stories in the United States this week. From escalating tensions with Iran to major trade talks with China to growing protests over immigration policy, there's a lot happening in Washington and across the country. Let's get into it. So, it's another day here in the United States, and guess what? President Dumbass, as always, decides to get us yet into another war, even though Mr. I'm gonna end the foreign wars. I'm gonna do it. There'll be no wars while I'm president because I'm the greatest, most amazing, most fantastic president ever. My face should be on Rushmore, Mount Mushmore. Yes, Mount Mushmore, whatever the hell that is. Mount Rushmore. Look, I can't even talk like Donald Trump because I'm just spilling my words and I don't know what the hell is going on. But anyways, Diaper Don is at it again. Diaper Don, sweep. I mean, Donald Stalin, whatever you want to call him. He's obviously disappointed a lot of people. Um, yeah, disappointed a lot of people. Now, here's where I come from with Donald Trump. Now, I supported the guy in 2016. I was a part of the MAGA movement. I was all that stuff. Well, then one day, well, was it one day? Okay, no, I'm fast forwarding too far into the future. Damn it, I hate when I do that. So yes, I was one of those people that was one of his supporters because he had what I call the celebrity advantage. Now, what that is if you're a celebrity, if you're, I mean, whether you're Donald Trump, whether you're anybody, you have this advantage because you already have the popularity. People already know who you are. You're not some stranger stepping onto the debate stage, and you're not. Um, you're not. So Donald Trump, obviously, before he got into politics, was a real estate developer, created the most amazing, the greatest real estate empire ever lived. He's a real estate empire. He's a maverick, I tell you. Oh God. Sorry, I just had to I had to describe it as he would because he's had a lot of sex with a lot of women. Um Getting back to what I was saying. So we've seen that with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was one of the biggest action stars in the 80s, the greatest actor in the world. So there was that. Became the governor or governor of California, as many people like to call him. But yeah, he won easily. And probably because he was an actor, he was a beloved actor before getting into politics. So that's where you have the celebrity advantage is right there. Donald Trump, real estate developer, gets on the stage. And now I would say at first he struggled a little bit, but his popularity started growing and growing and growing. And then he just like wiped the floor with Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, all these people. But yeah, was a guy that was saying that or criticizing Jeb Bush for what his brother did and his father did, getting us into two wars in the Middle East. No, three wars. Because you had the Gulf War with George H.W. Bush. And then when George W. Bush became president, you had the war in Afghanistan, which to me, I don't blame him for deploying troops to Afghanistan because one, that was reasonable because of 9/11. Okay, we were attacked. That was to me, that's justification to go to war if we are attacked. The Iraq war, on the other hand, I do not agree with. I don't think we should have been there. That was regime change all the way. We were um, what's the word I'm looking for? Overthrow Saddam Hussein. Now we did capture him, but after that, we should have packed our bags and brought the troops home. And now here we are again, another Republican president, another war. Now here's what I think is happening with this. One, they're just. I mean, you have Pete Hegseth, whiskey Pete Hegseth, saying the Cobra Kai basically mentality: strike first, no mercy. And here's what I think. Here's what I think. Donald Trump, this is how foolish he is. Marco Rubio ran against him. Ted Cruz ran against him. These were establishment Republicans back in 2016. And they're also neocons. Now, for those who don't know, a neocon is short for neoconservative. Now, people say that, oh, that they're not warhawks. No, they're warhawks. To me, if you are a neocon, you are a warhawk. And he said he was going to get rid of the neocons in the GOP, which he failed to do, because now he has neocons that are a part of his administration. Marco Rubio's the Secretary of State, neocon. And then you have Lindsey Graham, no thank you, ma'am, as his, I guess, advisor, even though he's not. I mean, he's not his advisor. This is the thing. What's happening is Lindsey Graham is getting into Trump's ear. They know that Trump is unhinged and that he is just built on retaliation. You do something to him, he'll do it right back. Eye for an eye. That's how Donald Trump's always looked at it. So anytime Iran does anything or says anything, whatever, Lindsey Graham or Marco Rubio is showing that to him. Oh, look what Iran said about you. We should launch missiles. And that's exactly what they did. They did airstrikes. You literally had the president of the United States, Donald Trump, saying, and I quote, "I'm going to bomb the shit out of them." And look, I will be the first one to say that the War Powers Resolution needs to go. Here's why I'm against the War Powers Resolution that was passed by Congress back, I think it was 1973. Here's why I'm against it. Because it gets us into war. It gets us into war. Why the hell does the president of the United States have the right to order airstrikes without going through Congress? No. That should not be allowed. It should be unacceptable. To me, it's unconstitutional. That law is unconstitutional. And I think, didn't J.D. Vance say that? I think he did, and I do, but he thinks it's unconstitutional for a different reason. He thinks that the president of the United States should just declare war without having to go through Congress, which is a bunch of BS. That's not how our nation works. That's not how our founders did it, because they don't want one person deciding for the entire country where we're going to war. Because I can tell you right now, if that were the case, we would have troops deployed in Greenland right now. We would have troops deployed in Iran right now. And thank God we're not. So getting back to it, I lost my train of thought here. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. There was a missile strike that happened in Iran. I think it was last week. And one of the missiles hit a school in Iran. And I remember reading the articles and how horrified I was at what they described. And you might not want to hear this because it's pretty graphic on what I'm going to say. That missile strike, when it hit that school, you had people digging through the rubble and seeing children's severed heads and limbs in that rubble. Innocent girls, innocent children were massacred because of, I don't know where this order came from. I don't know if it was Pete Hegseth, but that's a war crime. That is a crime against children. Of course, I'm not actually surprised, because here's the same administration that's covering up the Epstein files. this was a crime against humanity. It should be considered a crime against humanity. That is a war crime. I don't know who ordered it, but they should be tried for war crimes. Now, President Trump is basically absolved because that does fall in the lines of presidential immunity. It is an official act of the president to order an airstrike. So, and I don't believe that Trump had the military target that school. Or somebody gave him misinformation and be like, oh yeah, that's whatever. That's where they're hiding nuclear weapons. I don't know, but this is all familiar. This has happened before. This is the Iraq war all over again. Instead, it's with Iraq's neighbor, Iran. This is the same thing. Oh, they're hiding nuclear weapons. They're hiding nuclear weapons. Where is the evidence? They are hiding nuclear weapons. That's what I want to know. Where's the evidence? Because this is the same thing we heard with Iraq. That Saddam had nuclear weapons. We deployed troops. We went over there. And then it was later confirmed that Saddam didn't have any nuclear weapons. And this is another thing. I guarantee if we were, God forbid, to deploy troops over to Iran, they would come back saying, yeah, there's no weapons of mass destruction here. There's no nuclear weapons. Here's another suspicious thing. Why would they hide it? You had Russia that tested nuclear weapons in the past. The most powerful nuclear weapon, the Tsar Bomba, which they said never again because it was that powerful. And then you also have North Korea that's doing weapons testing. But we're attacking Iran. That's what I want to know. Why are we going after Iran? Because I'm sure if they were testing, like if they had nuclear weapons, they would be doing all kinds of testing. All kinds. I'm really convinced that even the CIA said, like, yeah, they don't have any nukes. Of course, that's not what Trump out here. Oh, I don't give a shit. Send them over there anyways. Attack them anyways. So I don't know if Iran said something to the president that angered him, because even the littlest insults set him off. And if one of these politicians in Iran, whether it be the supreme leader, whatever, did this, said, you're a orange-faced, I don't know, orange-faced clown. There we go. That he would be yelling to PXF, fire the missiles. I want them eradicated off the face of the earth. This is how he is. So I think I kind of went off track a little bit with the Iran war and all that. So let's get back to 2016. Sorry, I'm jumping around all places, but I just decided to give you my history on where I come from politics. Now, before like 2016, I had no interest in politics. I could care less about politics. So I started getting in because I hated what was happening to the country. It was just frozen. Things weren't better. And then, of course, Donald Trump comes along. I am your savior. I am the greatest. I will make America great again. And I supported him during his first term. I was believing all that garbage about the fake news media, blah, 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 blah. How dare you criticize me? All that stuff. And then 2020 rolls around. And I was one of those people that believed his big lie that the 2020 election was stolen, which I will say right now, no, it was not stolen. So, how did I get out of that? How did I get out of that? Well, I saw when after Biden uh, took office, there was all these scandals, classified documents, everything, and I'm just going, "Oh my god, he's done. He's there's no way. There's just no way he is going to become president again. He has too much baggage. He has committed political suicide." That's how I looked at it, is that he committed political suicide. There was the classified documents, there was the Stormy Daniels scandal, there was all this stuff. And I remember in 2022 rolled around. And here he was going on the campaign trail, endorsing candidates, everything else. Well, we all know why he was doing that. He wanted Kari Lake to become Arizona governor. He wanted Doug Mastriano to become Pennsylvania governor. He wanted all these people, his allies, to become governors of these states. So when he ran again, that was the hint that he was running again in 2024. And if in case Biden won again, because everybody knew Biden was going to run for a second term, even though people were unsure. And then he later confirmed, like, "Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it." So he did it. And let me try to come up with the words here. They all lost. Of course, he was furious because, I mean, there were some MAGA candidates that won. JD Vance won. But there was one guy. Okay, let me go back a little bit. So Republicans before the 2022 midterms were saying, "Oh, there's going to be a big red wave. There's going to be a big red wave." There wasn't a red wave. There was a red trickle. However, there was actually, no, I take it back. There was a red wave in Florida. Marco Rubio got reelected with ease, and Ron DeSantis got reelected. Now, back then, DeSantis was my guy. To me, he was the next Ronald Reagan. And at that point, I was ready to move on from Trump. He had all this baggage, everything else. And I was just done, because I'm like, there's no way he is going to win. If he becomes the Republican nominee, it's 4 more years of Biden. They're going to go with the lesser of two evils. You're going to go with the guy that's doing a bad job, or are you going to go with the guy that has all this legal baggage? So time rolls around. Ron DeSantis enters the race. But they just couldn't. Trump was a juggernaut. I don't know what it is. He was just invincible when it came to campaigning. And Democrats tried everything they could. And to me, they were a little bit too aggressive. They were trying to use the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, to get him disqualified. And I can understand why. So he ended up becoming the Republican nominee. They tried to get him off the ballot using the 14th Amendment, which they did. Kind of. Like, the state of Colorado disqualified him, but then it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, since he's running for federal office, Congress would have to make a law. So they basically just threw it into Congress's lap and be like, well, Congress would have to make the law or, revise the 14th Amendment to make it more specific. And so he ended up running again. Biden dropped out. Kamala Harris before after the primaries, which this was the 68 election all over again. Hopefully Democrats have learned from their mistake not to do that. And here's what I think they should have done. They did not hold primary debates. That right there was a mistake. They should have held primary debates instead of awarding him the nomination on a silver platter. To me, that's like, let's say, for example, the NFL canceling the playoffs and for next season and just having the Seahawks automatically in the Super Bowl. But that's not how it works. And they should have held primary debates because they could have seen that, Democrats could have seen, wow, yeah, this guy isn't able to run again. The mind is willing, but the body's not able. That's how I describe the whole Biden thing. So what did they do? Instead of holding primary debates, they decide, we're just going to give him the nomination. And then he debates Trump on CNN, and people realize that he can't do another 4 years. He just can't. He's just not able to. And oh God. Let me see. Sorry, my brain's trying to work right now. Yeah, people were freaked out. Democrats were freaking out and pressuring him, you need to resign, resign. And at first Biden was like, no, I can do this. But then he started getting pressured within his own party to drop out. I mean, what was it? I think Jamie Raskin's like, you need to resign. John Fetterman's like, chill out. He can do it. He can do another 4 years. No problem. So they ended up, so he finally caved. He finally caved and passed the torch on to Kamala Harris and endorsed her. Well, thing was that the primaries were already said and done. So she automatically became the Democratic nominee. Now, I always wonder, what if he decided not to run again? Would we have a Democrat in office right now? Who knows? So anyways, Trump got the nomination, and I'm like, we're doomed. We're doomed. He's going to lose. They're going to look at it. They're going to look at Kamala Harris as the lesser of two evils. Well, then the election rolled around, and surprisingly, he won. Well, he won back every state he lost in 2020, plus Nevada. He flipped Nevada. Ended the Democrats' 20-year streak in Nevada. Because the last time a Republican won Nevada was 2004, when George W. Bush won Nevada. So, first Republican since George W. Bush to win Nevada. And he made history, being the first president since Grover Cleveland to serve 2 non-consecutive terms and the first Republican to do it. So, hold on, guys, just 1 second. Let me get some water. All right. So I don't like to keep my drinking glass here because it could spill, and I got electronics here and everything else. And, that's a recipe for disaster. So where were we getting at? Okay, the presidential election. That's right. And so he shocked the. I was shocked. I could not believe. I was in disbelief that the American people, with all the baggage that he somehow got reelected. Now, maybe it's because gas was cheaper during his first term, whatever. I mean, they were looking at it like, oh, things were better during Trump's first term. Well, his second term wasn't what people thought they were. He said he was going to end the forever wars. But yet here we are attacking Iran. He said he was going to make America affordable again. Yet inflation is still high. And because of his whole stunt in Iran, they are now, what's the word I'm looking for? Gas prices, there we go, are now higher and are continuing to climb. They were at 3 something a gallon, and now they have shot up to 4 something a gallon, depending on where you are, at least where I'm at. In like California, where it's like $7 a gallon. Good God. How do people live there? So, when he got into the White House, I was like, this is going to be bad. Because this isn't going to be like his first term, and people need to be aware. It was not like his first term. When he was in his first term, he had people that would not do everything he wanted for good reason, because one, it was illegal or was unconstitutional, whatever the case. And he looked at them as an obstacle. And what did he do? He fired them. Like, look, this guy went through 2 attorney generals. Or was it 3? I think it was 2. It was Jeff Sessions and then Bill Barr. So now he nominated all these loyalists who will just do whatever they want or will take orders without questions, regardless if they're legal or illegal. So yeah, there's that. And things have just been chaos. You have ICE running wild, violating people's civil rights. You have to the point where it's led to the death of 2 US citizens. And because he has a authoritarian in the White House, Stephen Benedict Arnold, as I like to call him. This guy is literally, and I'm a huge comic book fan. He actually reminds me a lot of Magneto, and the reason why, I mean, obviously he doesn't have superpowers like Magneto, but just like the same ideology almost. Like Magneto was a mutant supremacist. He used violence to I mean, I guess you could label, Magneto a domestic terrorist, because technically he was. But this guy was, I want to see that guy get thrown in jail. Because Donald Trump's basically letting him do whatever. To me, Stephen Miller is the shadow president. He is. And he's doing this because of the president's pardon power, because he knows it's like, oh, as long as I'm on Trump's good side, I'll get pardoned. Maybe. We shall see. So, anyways, here we are. We got high gas prices. And people have to admit, like, Trump is like Bizarro. He is the opposite of what he means. When he says he's going to make America affordable again, he's going to make America expensive again. I'm going to end the foreign wars, which translates to, I'm going to continue the foreign wars. Because people need to realize Trump was willing to say anything to get himself elected. And that's exactly what he did. I'm going to secure the border. And by secure the border, I mean try to deport people without due process, all that stuff. So yeah, and here we are. But let's get more back into the news. Let's see what else we got. Okay, here we go. Stuff still happening with Iran. So, U.S. conflict with Iran. The biggest story dominating U.S. politics right now is the ongoing conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. Military operations began after coordinated U.S. Israeli strikes targeted Iranian military infrastructure in late February, dramatically escalating tensions in the Middle East. President Donald Trump says the campaign has been successful so far, but officials warned the conflict could continue for weeks. The administration says the military operation is aimed at weakening Iran's military capabilities and preventing further attacks in the region. But critics in Congress argued that the president launched the operation without go oops without what? Uh, without sufficient approval from lawmakers. In fact, Congress recently debated a resolution to limit the president's war powers, but it narrowly failed in the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, the conflict has also triggered global economic ripple effects, particularly in the oil market. To stabilize fuel prices, the administration announced plans to release oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which he criticized Biden for doing. Okay. Energy officials say the goal is to prevent the war from causing major spikes in gasoline prices for American consumers. So let me get this straight. He's basically going to do what he criticized Biden for doing a couple of years ago. Can anybody? I want to find that. I want to find that post, but it's probably buried. I would have to dig and dig and dig to find it because you know how. I mean, he is like a addict when it comes to social media. I wonder what his record is. He has to set the record for most posts done in a day. I really think he does. I don't know, but so yeah, I mean, yeah, life's fantastic under Trump. I mean, look, we have record gas prices. Gas prices are going up. Inflation is remaining the same and making it even worse because of his tariffs. Even though the Supreme Court ruled that his tariffs are unconstitutional. So yeah, life is great. I guess his campaign should be make America expensive again because that's exactly what he's doing. This guy is a lame duck. He has not done anything. He is more corrupt than Nixon. He probably will say, "Oh yeah, President Nixon, the Democrats weaponized everything against him. I think he was a great president." You know, he even put like because there's like a he had pictures of all the presidents leading up to Donald Trump. I don't think he's on there, but obviously he attacked Obama, he attacked Joe Biden. He didn't attack Jimmy Carter. I actually read his thing on Jimmy Carter and actually wasn't like really partisan. I'm kind of curious what to see what he said about Ronald Reagan. But there was one other thing. Oh yeah, I kind of want also I want to see what he said about Richard Nixon. That I want to see if he said, "Oh yeah, the Democrats weaponized, rigged the election so they could arrest President Nixon." So I don't know. The guy's I don't know what to say, but here's what I do think about this whole Iraq. Sorry. Fast forward, Iran. I have my head stuck in the 2000s again. Here's what I think about Iran on the war in Iran. One, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's absolutely unnecessary that we're even there in the first place. This is Lindsey Graham. Let me tell you something about Lindsey Graham. He is using Donald Trump. This is a guy who was one of the first anti-Trump Republicans in when he campaigned. He literally said MAGA could go to hell. Go look it up. He said MAGA can go to hell. He wanted to keep Trump out of the Republican Party. but he knew that that was failing. He knew that Trump was winning over Republican voters, even voters in his own state. And Lindsey Graham went by the philosophy, if you can't beat him, join him. And that's exactly what Lindsey Graham did. He completely did a 180, went from anti-Trump to pro-Trump because he didn't have a choice. He represents South Carolina. South Carolina is a ruby red state. He had no choice. He knew if he went against Trump, he would be voted out. He is only pro-Trump so he can keep his seat in Congress. That is it. Because he knows if he goes against Trump, he's voted out. Trump will primary him. But here's where it's getting interesting. Watch what happens. I wouldn't even say after the primaries. Watch what happens after the midterms. Lindsey Graham is going to turn on him. Do you know why I know this? Because I find it funny that he went from anti-Trump to pro-Trump. He is also manipulating Trump because it's Lindsey Graham, who is a neocon, who wants this war. He is the one. Now, listen, I will be the first one to admit, yes, Iran has a tyrannical government. Women have no rights. The Quran is law. So whatever it says to do in the Quran is law. Whatever it says not to do in the Quran has been banned in Iran. Iran, Quran. Oh. Huh. I just realized that rhymed. They are a theocracy. But how is it our problem? This fight is between Israel and Iran. We should not be getting involved. In fact, I don't think Iran once attacked us before we attacked them. I don't think. Yeah, I can't remember a time where I think that they only attacked us because it was out of retaliation. We threw the first punch. They didn't. If I were the president, I would let Israel and Iran fight it out because we have no business being over there. So getting on to other things here, what's also in the news? U.S.-China trade talks, while the conflict in the Middle East is dominating headlines. Another major diplomatic development is happening in Europe. Senior economic officials from the United States and China met in Paris this week to restart trade negotiations. The talks are seen as a precursor to a possible summit between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. So I don't even know what's going on with Trump. He has like kind of a love-hate relationship with China. Like he likes Xi Jinping for some reason, even though he's accusing Democrats of being communists, yet Xi Jinping is an actual communist. So I don't know. He has a love-hate relationship. I guarantee that Xi Jinping is going to talk with him and he's going to give in because Xi Jinping is going to get him some nice medal or something or name a monument in China after him. Maybe open a Trump hotel in Shanghai. I don't know. So let me see. All right. Officials are discussing tariffs, export restrictions on high-tech goods, rare earth mineral supplies. Oh, why am I not surprised? And agriculture trade. The meeting follows a fragile trade truce reached last year that temporarily paused escalating tariffs between the world's two largest economies. Analysts say the talks are especially important right now because the war with Iran is already putting pressure on global energy markets, and the last thing the world economy needs is another trade war. Yes, that is true. We do not need a trade war. Listen, I don't like China. Their government, anyways. I think there's a lot of like history with China. The Great Wall of China, all the dynasties they had back in the day. But yeah, they're a communist government. I condemn communism. It is to me one of the worst ideologies ever created. Now, when I say that, I mean, there's actually two types of communism. There's like the communism that was founded by Karl Marx, which I think I is a disaster. I mean, that's pretty much where everything is publicly owned. And I don't think Karl Marx realized that his ideology that he came up with was going to do more harm than good. And then there's authoritarian communism, like China, who are authoritarian communists. So, and fuck authoritarianism. That's all I got to say. I don't care on both sides. You know, I condemn far left authoritarianism. I condemn far right authoritarianism. Okay, let's see. Let's get into this more. We're almost going on 40 minutes here. I can't believe it. Segment 3. Why did I say that? Okay. Domestic politics and public opinion back home. The political landscape remains highly polarized. I wonder why. Recent national polls show more Americans disapprove of the current direction of the country than approve. Much of the debate in Washington right now centers around three issues: foreign policy and the war in Iran, immigration enforcement, and the economy, especially energy prices. Okay. Democrats are criticizing the administration's handling of the conflict and warning about the risks of a prolonged war. So yes, what they're worried about is the United States getting in another forever war. Look at how long the war in Afghanistan lasted, 20 years. At the same time, Republicans argue the military operation is necessary to protect U.S. interests and deter future threats. Oh, for God's sakes. With the 2026 midterm elections approaching, these debates are likely to intensify over the next several months. Honestly, I think he's just bombing Iran because he can bomb Iran. He literally says he literally said, this is what he said. He wants to do it for fun. For fun. There's nothing fun about that. What kind of person says that? Can anybody tell me that? All right, let's see what else there is. Immigration and protests. Immigration policy is also becoming a major flashpoint again. Earlier this year, protests broke out in several cities after fatal incidents involving federal immigration agents. Demonstrators are calling for major reforms to ICE and its enforcement policies. New protests are planned across the United States later this month as activists organize demonstrations against federal immigration enforcement. Supporters of tougher enforcement say the policies are necessary to control illegal immigration, but critics argue the tactics being used by federal agents are too aggressive and lack oversight. The issue could become one of the defining political battles heading into the midterms. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. So ICE is, of course, I mean, I've heard some horrifying things. There was a whistleblower that was in a shadow hearing that said that new recruits were being trained to ignore the Constitution. And that should piss any American off. I mean, that right there. You don't get to, they are not guidelines. It is the law of the land. And then you have that idiot Stephen Miller saying, you have absolute immunity. No, you do not. There is no law that says you did. There's no law that said you didn't. There's no law that said you do. There actually is a law that says deprivation of rights under color of law. So that's another thing. Deprivation of rights under color of law. And that is a felony. So let's see. So, yeah, there's been this battle in Congress over the funding of Homeland Security. Democrats are refusing to fund it until they get more oversight, body cameras, masks off, all that stuff. And of course, then you have the Republicans saying, "Oh, they just wanted chaos and blah blah blah." Law and order. Yeah, whatever. I can't believe anything they say anymore. I really can't. They've literally become the party of excuses. They will come up with any excuse not to pass something, even though it's good for the country, because they don't want to give Democrats credit. That's what George Washington warned us about. That he he warned that legislation could be blocked by one party just because it came from the opposing party. Oh, I'll tell you guys. I mean, state of the country we're in. So now here we go. Climate and regulatory policy. Another major development this week involves environmental policy. The Trump administration has rolled back several federal climate regulations that previously allowed the government to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. Supporters say the changes will boost energy production and reduce regulatory burdens on business. But several states, including California, what a surprise there, are preparing legal challenges, setting up what could become a major court battle between states and the federal government. Environmental groups say the outcome could shape U.S. climate policy for years to come. So, yeah, there's California, of course, once again filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Of course they would. Of course they would. So, but yeah, I mean, with the tariffs, ever since the Supreme Court ruled that the tariffs were unconstitutional, the Trump administration has been flooded with lawsuits. I mean, they are like trapped. There's like a lawsuit avalanche that they are caught under right now. I can't. Oh my. He's going to set the record. I swear, he's going to set the record for most lawsuits filed against one administration. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. But here's my take on the 2022 midterms. Okay. Correction, 2026 midterms. Not 2022, 2026. Okay. So the 2026 midterms, here's what I think. I will say right now, Democrats are going to win. I mean, with the things with ICE, he is alienating so many people from his base because he promised them no more wars. But here we are launching attacks on Iran. So that has not gone well with the mega base. He said he was going to release the Epstein files. And then he decides that no, he's not going to release them because his name is in the Epstein files. Now, here's the thing. If he was innocent, then why is he trying so hard to stop them from getting released? Because here's one of two things. Either there is dirt on him in those files or somebody in his administration. And I could probably guess who there is dirt on if it's not him. And that is his, Commerce Secretary, I think? Yeah, Howard Lutnick. So that makes me think. I do not trust this guy. He is going to testify in front of Congress. I still don't trust him because honestly, I think he's going to lie under oath to save his own ass. That's just what I believe. But there is something else I wanted to say too, is that Trump's FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr, is at it again. Did I say FCC? Sorry, I meant the Department of Truth. This guy is not running the FCC. It's not even the FCC anymore. It is the Department of Truth. Yes, that is a 1984 Easter egg, even though in the book it's known as the Ministry of Truth, but which I get because with George Orwell being British. Of course, in England, everything is known as like Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Defense. Whereas here, Ministry of Justice. Did I say Ministry of Justice? I don't remember if I said that. But over here, it's Department everything. Department of War. Actually, I'm going to start calling it the Department of War because, yeah, that's exactly what the Trump administration wants is they want war. So, yeah, you have the Department of War, the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, all that stuff. So yes, he is at it again, threatening to revoke their license. If it were me, I would tell him, go ahead, try it, see what happens, because I will see you in court, and good luck trying to go against the First Amendment, because every judge going all the way to the Supreme Court is going to side with the First Amendment. Here is the party that is complaining about censorship, yet here is the Truth Department Commissioner Brendan Carr threatening to revoke licenses from other news agencies. And you know why he's doing that is he's trying to cover his ass. He's trying to say, "Oh yeah, this is fake news. This is fake news. This is fake news." And that's why he's trying to do something, because people are going to wonder. People are going to wonder, okay, well, if this is really fake news, why aren't they pulling the broadcast license of these news networks? Well, it's because it wouldn't stand up in court, because they've been doing it for years. I think and they have not. How many lawsuits has CBS gotten from people that have lied or anything else? The only person I could think that have sued those networks is Trump himself. But you look at Fox News when they were skeptical about the 2020 election and continued to say, well, we're having people on saying, oh yeah, it was stolen, it was rigged, all this stuff, to the point where Dominion voting machines filed a lawsuit against the network, to the point where Tucker Carlson lost his job at Fox News. And look, so kind of wondering here. Now, I'm sure Fox News tried to appeal, but those appeals haven't gone anywhere. So yeah, and I will say it again, Joe Biden won the 2020 election. As much as I hate that he did win. Trump won the 2024 election. He won the 2016 election. Because there's no evidence that any of these elections were rigged. So that's where I stand on that. So let's see. We're going on 52 minutes, and I think it's pretty good. So yeah, we had a little review. You had the war in Iran. You had Brendan Carr, Trump's FCC commissioner, threatening to revoke the broadcast license of major news networks because he's accusing them of being fake news. Yeah. So I don't know what to say about that, except you're going to lose badly. And I find it funny too, that I find it laughable that all these lawsuits that they've been filing have just failed miserably in court. He literally tried to take members of Congress to court because all they said was that they were addressing military personnel, saying that you have the right to disobey illegal orders. And they lost. And then Whiskey Pete Hegseth, we're going to appeal. We're going to appeal. Yeah, go ahead to do that because you're going to lose there too. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. And I think we got off to a good start. I think we definitely got off to a good start. I think this was a success. And I'm not saying that because I'm Donald Trump. But yeah. So just a little recap. Here are are the biggest political stories in the United States this week: the ongoing U.S. conflict with Iran and its economic impact, trade negotiations with China ahead of a potential presidential summit, the rising political tensions at home as midterm elections approach, immigration protests and policy debates, and new fights over climate regulations. Keep watching as these stories develop. Sorry, I keep tripping over my words. We'll keep watching these stories as they develop. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time for another breakdown of the week in politics. I'm your host, Vlad Mabus, and this has been The New Republic, Episode 1. I will see you next time, which should be, I believe, next week. I'll have it next week. Okay, so sometime next week. I promise. Anyways, I'm Vlad Mabus, and I will see you next time.